I'm Dan Alexander. I'm a clinical cardiologist at Winchester Cardiology and Vascular Medicine.
I'm Tricia Nashid, also a cardiologist at Winchester Cardiology and Vascular Medicine.
And we're here to share some of the recipes that we make for our own family that we feel are heart healthy and may give you some ideas to cook your own heart healthy meals at home. This is a grain called farro. It's a lot like rice. It's a whole wheat product. It comes from a very specific type of wheat plant, mostly in Europe. The advantage of this type of grain is that it's a whole grain. And the advantage of whole grains is that it continues to have the germ and the bran. And what does that do? Well, it slows down absorption in the gut. And so these types of grains have less impact on your blood sugars. And so we like to use these in cooking, and we like to interchange these with other grains that can increase your blood sugars very quickly, like the typical arborio rice that you use for risotto. So we're going to make a risotto out of this grain. So we'll start with about a cup of this, but first of all, we're going to start like any risotto starts. We're going to start with a little bit of olive oil. Remember, it's a heart-healthy oil. We're going to get that started on our pan here. So we got about 2 tablespoons of olive oil there. We're going to swirl that around in our pan, let that get heated up. Shallots are like onions. If you don't have shallots, you could use plain white onions. We're going to get that started in our pan. And we're going to have to kick this up a little bit. So we're going to get that going in our pan. Shake that around a little bit. We're going to soften up those vegetables. There are 2 options here for this recipe. You can start with cooked farro, which has already been boiled. You don't have to do that, but it's gotten softened up. In our case, we're going to use dried farro, which is very inexpensive. It can be found in most grocery stores in your specialty section, and it looks like this. So we're just going to throw that in, and we're going to brown it for a little bit. And that's going to brown up nicely. It's going to give a little toasted flavor to the farro, which I think adds a little bit more to this dish. We'll get the rest of that olive oil in there. All right. Now once that's toasted, we're going to add stock. We're going to add warm stock to this, and then we'll start the cooking process. So we're going to start with 2 cups of vegetable stock. You can buy this at the grocery store. They come in Tetra Packs. They're ready to go, or you can make your own vegetable stock if you're so inclined. So we're going to pour that right in here. All right, we're going to let that go for a little bit. We're going to bring this up to a simmer. And just like any risotto, we're going to cook this just like any other risotto. It's going to absorb the liquid. It's going to become soft, but it's going to take some time. So we'll be back when this is closer to be ready. And we see that it's sort of softened up. The grains have softened up. It's absorbed most of this liquid, and you have a little bit of a broth in there. You can cook that down a little bit more, but I think this is pretty good. Just watching it sort of cook down is to put a little bit of butter and Parmigiano Reggiano. We're going to do this off the heat, so we're going to turn our burner off. We're going to put in about a tablespoon of butter. So that's about a tablespoon of butter. Off the heat, we're just going to mix that in, let it melt into there, just like any other risotto would be. That's pretty much melted. The next step is to put a little bit of Parmigiano Reggiano. This is from just shredded Parmesan cheese. We're just going to put a little bit in there, just like any traditional risotto. We're going to mix that through. So it makes sort of almost like a little soup. The grain has enough starch to give it a little sauce, melts the cheese. And there you have it. We finish with a little bit of salt and pepper to taste. And that is a healthy grain to have with hopefully roast chicken and a butternut squash soup, as well as our soup that we had from Dr. Nashid. Okay. Awesome.
One of the things we added was citrus to a lot of the portions of the meal. Citrus is a great way to add flavor without adding salt or sugar. This is a good example of a appropriately portioned plate. There is protein, usually about the size of a deck of cards. There is a whole grain, which should keep about the size of your fist or smaller. There is a side of soup. The soup has a lot of beta-carotenes, vitamins. The more color there is to your vegetables, the more nutrients there are. There is another side soup here. Oftentimes you can do a sauteed green or another vegetable. It's a good idea to put 2 vegetables on your plate with each meal. You can do green salads. This one features a lot of bok choy, so although there's some protein in the soup, it also features a fair amount of vegetable.
The other element that we like to introduce in food is sort of non-tasting, so it's color. So you see the color in this soup, the color of the green sauce, that all adds to making food taste better, actually. And that's why we add little small bits of green, or that's also part of the meal itself, but adds that bit of color and makes the meal seem more exciting.